G'day everybody and welcome back to another exciting episode of Spitting Bricks with Jono. Today's guest is Ryan Evans from Australian Lego Masters Season 3 and 5. Welcome Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Fantastic, better now. So
Better now because you're not still recording the show.
Well, better now that I don't know. No, I got to screw it up. No, I'm going to make a mistake first thing. Right, going back to the beginning. Right, anyway, this is a guy from Australia. Funny thing is, the first time I met you, I didn't really meet you. This is the first time we've actually met.
Yeah, true. We've chatted a bit, but first time face to face.
But we were getting prepared for our Lego Masters, and the production team goes, "Oh, we've got special access to Season 3 of Australian Lego Masters. We want you to watch that. We want you to build like that." Okay, no pressure.
Gosh. Just would have seen that fox in the globe and gone, just like we all did.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm worthy anymore. That's pretty amazing. All right, so personally, your personal journey with Lego. Can you start by sharing how you first got into Lego? Like, have you got a first set?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I can't remember my very first set, but the first one that I really, had circled in the catalogs and had made many hints with the fam was 7715, the push along steam engine.
Okay.
And I was probably, I couldn't even tell you how old I was at the time, but I was, would have been 4 or 5 when I got my first little spaceman or something like that. But I remember my pa taking me to Maya, had the top level of Maya had one of the Lego exhibitions. I guess it would have been 80s, early 80s. So I might have been maybe 6 or 7.
Do you remember what the exhibition was? I
don't actually.
Because I remember seeing a King Tut one or an Egypt one when I was a kid. That ended up in Wellington at some point.
I do remember that there was
I remember seeing one over in Australia. I've got a brochure somewhere.
Yeah, my brother, who's 10 years younger than me, actually found one of the old vintage brochures, and I was like, "Oh, this looks familiar," but I think it was from like 2 or 3 years later, because I remember there was this animatronic band. You press the button and then it'll animate, and pretty average by today's standards, but it blew my mind. It was a mixture of basic bricks and bit of Technic in there, and obviously solenoids that were not actually Lego. But it was just like, wow. And I remember Toy World had it like 10 years later, and it would have been 20 years later, actually. And it looked so rubbish. But I was like, I remember seeing that when I was a kid. So that's a bit special. But yeah, 7715 was the first set, and I still have it. And it's almost all original. I did replace the I've lost the pistons.
Right.
But this is, that's almost original.
Wow. Fantastic. And so what is it about Lego that kind of intrigued you think? Like, was it trains in particular, or?
Look, I definitely was into all things mechanical, but definitely trains seem to be the latch point. I didn't really dig space heavily, but I did get into it for a little while, but it was the monorail that really attracted me, so I guess still trains. It's funny, actually, now that it's so amazing. It's the holy grail of the rail stuff, because it was rare, expensive, there's not a lot of it out, it's all discoloured, but yeah, it was that special to me back then, and got it for Christmas. It was probably my last year of before the Dark Ages. But I think the thing that I love about Lego is it's an artistic medium that's completely manipulatable. You can do it over and over again. You can, obviously it's hard to make a face or something like that out of Lego, but you can go, that doesn't look right. Whereas if you got your oil paintings or whatever, you got to scrape it, or wait for it to dry, or it's really, really hard to redo eyes. Where I can just go click, 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 click. Hey, that works. So I think that's what I like.
It's quite iterative. It's one of the few artistic mediums that you actually get to iterate without causing too much damage or any damage.
100%. Like so many. Like I look. One of the banes of my existence is pulling apart what I might call the sketchbook. So all the little things that I've built along the way, that sort of just a little practice of how that might work. Those pieces, I want to. I'm going to use that, and then they're there for 3, 4, 5 years, and you rediscover them, and you go, oh, I remember when I did that. But it's just so many little pieces everywhere. But yeah, whereas of course if it was just a sketchbook, it'd just be pencil, grey lead, white paper, done.
So, what was your experience on Lego Masters? I mean, you won twice, so you're a glutton for punishment. So, what was it like? What was it like?
Yeah, look, pretty amazing. I mean, I applied for season 1 when we didn't even know what it all was about. That the only thing we did when we looked on YouTube was the British one, which had a very, a much different pace, I guess, than what the Australian one ended up being. But I got very close to getting on. A lot of phone calls with the executive producer where I was possibly going to be the, one person dropped out. I could have been the next person, and then it was like went with the other guy. So I kind of was like, now that I've got the itch, I need to apply again. And then it was probably a bit too cocky for season 2. So as soon as things came out with season 3, my wife said we should apply together. Applied with my wife, and we were going to be on, but we're also pregnant. So we're about 12, 13 weeks pregnant when that interview where you kind of know, you're one of the preferred teams. And we had to sort of be honest and say, look, I'm so sorry. This could be good news. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you could just see his face just dropped. And but yeah, I obviously got partnered with Gabby, and that was a big unknown. But they picked someone who was very much of same sort of age group, 2 kids, Melbourneite. She's more of a city dweller than I am, but we got along really, really well, and obviously filled that mumsy dadsy sort of character role that they like to have in the show.
They do.
But I think it was interesting because probably the first 3 or 4 episodes was like a trial by fire. I was like, we got the Brick of Doom, which was the one and only season they've ever done it on. I think that was probably a massive fail. It was not a crowd favourite, that's for sure, and definitely wasn't mine. But it really played on my mind, and I remember breaking down one night when my wife's just gone, it's just a gimmick, don't worry about it. And I said, no, you don't understand. This brick highlights how mediocre we are. She says, what do you mean? I said, well, we can't win against Gus and David, and we can't win against Scotty and Owen. And, Michael and Harry are doing well as well. Like, we are basically just going to keep on winning above the teams that we're better than, but eventually we're just going to, still leave with the Brick of Doom. It might be 5 episodes in, it might be 3 episodes in. Either way, we are just waiting for our turn to be cannon fodder. She goes, I get it. And then our story won an episode with our flying machine guy, Marvelous Man. And then we promptly got eliminated with our ugly white. But then it was the comeback episode, and that was a whole new trajectory. And I'll tell you what, if it was the first 7 episodes, if that was all we got, and then they invited us back for a return special, I would have said no. But the second half of our season, it was lots of wins, lots of top 2s, all the way to the finale, of course. We knew we weren't going to be a contender for the $100,000 and the win, but it was pretty special to make it all the way through. And so, yeah, when Grandmasters came around, we were probably one of the lower ranked teams in terms of those, winners and runners up, and we were just one of the thirds. But yeah, it was pretty amazing on one stretch, but it's a tough emotional gig, as you well know.
It really is.
And I don't know, I kind of had this a bit naive, despite being 40-something at the time, but I thought that the hard part was getting on the show, being selected and finally getting on. And then once we're on, we're all making TV together. How cool's that? So the division between production and how friendly they perhaps all weren't versus the mateship you end up with the contestants who are also just, we don't know what's going to happen. The fact they want to keep you that stressed and that emotionally on edge, I was not expecting that at all. And frankly, I hated it. I was actually surprised by myself by putting myself through that a second time. But I had hoped that the Grandmasters would be a little bit more, we all know what's going on. We don't have to be as secretive. We don't have to be as standoffish with you. But a couple of the guys that we had become really good friends with, I think got a bit of a tap, a bit of a smack, and said, you can't talk to them. You have to stop. You have to, you can't have beers with them or whatever. Yeah, it was a little bit sad that Grandmasters wasn't a little bit more, let's all just come together. it definitely from the
needed to be competed.
contestant perspective, it was great.
How do you think your Lego building your style has changed since the show or the shows?
Well, I mean, before the shows, pretty much all of my building was something to do with building a train layout. I built other things, little contraptions and whatever, but my main passion was, building Thomas trains and adding to our communal train layout. Before Thomas, I just like Victorian trains, built Hogwarts Express, all that sort of stuff. But Thomas, I guess, was my niche. Stumbled on it with my nephew. But since the show, I've broadened that, and I've barely built any trains at all. I feel a bit bad for it, actually. I was chatting with a guy who bought one of my trains, sent me a little picture today saying his son, who was not even born at the time when he bought this train from me, and he showed a little picture saying, we got out the Lego trains, and guess which one's his favourite? And there he is, tootling along with Thomas. And I was like, oh, I remember that stage of my life. But I guess I now build a lot more beautiful contraptions.
Yeah.
I'm very much into, and I guess alongside of that, in teaching, I almost got tricked into having a bit of a play with some EV3 robotics, and then I had another mate who said, do first Lego League, you'll bloody love it. And was totally overwhelmed in the first season, but then the following ones, we got quite competitive, won a few awards and stuff like that, and I got really into, how am I going to build a contraption that does this and that with one motor? And so I think a lot of my mechanical, I wouldn't even say knowledge, but nous came from that experimentation. Because I've never done engineering, never done any of that really, and I was not a technic Lego kid. So that's all sort of happened, alongside Lego Masters. But yeah, since Lego Masters, definitely making other things other than trains.
Fair enough. So,
bless you, by the way.
Speaking of your building approach, so what is your approach? Do you have a sketch? Do you just start doodling with the bricks? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't really draw much. Like, I draw a lot personally, but not for Lego designs. It's usually starting to play with the bricks. Is usually a seed idea. But if I have a specific project that I'm working on, like I want to build up blah blah blah, I'll usually start with Studio, and do it all digitally. Just because the availability of the bricks, particularly if it's something I haven't built in, like I'm building a green thing for someone, and I don't really have many green bricks, so it was much easier to just do it digitally.
So that's one of the things I find difficult. I can't build from scratch digitally. I don't know. Okay. Maybe I'm just an analog kid. I mean, I've been in IT since I was 12, but I still have. I think it's something to do with I need to have both of my hands working to get my brain to be able to visualize what I'm doing. I'm still working on why. But yeah, I can. Once I've built something, I can replicate it.
Yeah.
But I can't. I don't get inspired with a blank, empty canvas and digital assets. It doesn't do it for me.
I think a lot of like my growth in using digital happened during Lego Masters, because the kit that they gave us to practice with was shocking. It was a couple of creator boxes and no bars, very few clips. It was really bad. So I had ideas that were burning that I didn't have the bricks to actually explore with. So I became more proficient at sort of, with most builds were over 2 days or 3 days or whatever, and we'd build the basics, and then the fancy thing that I was really overthinking, although I'm not experimenting on set, went home that night and I'd be using the digital to be, see if it'll work, see if the geometry will work, and got better at using it as a result. Because it's not fun to work with, like bending bricks on Studio sucks.
Yes. Oh, yes. Was there a particular build on either of the shows that you found particularly challenging and you had to overcome challenges like on the day? And how did you overcome them?
Look, probably the most significant one would have been our finale build, when we built the tent, of course, and the circus tent. And we, in the edit, you see Brickman saying, it's got to have the tent, and we've gone, and it looks like we hadn't considered it. But what we actually had, and I'd done the math on the time, very sort of stats and numbers kind of guy, and I went, 28 hours sounds like a long time, but it isn't. And we now know what does 14 hours look like? What does 10 hours look like? What can you produce in that amount of time? And what we were aiming to basically filled twice as much space. So effectively, it was like a regular build, but just twice as big. And I went, there's no way we're going to be able to build a massive, self-supporting, the sort of structure I'll need to be able to do all that. It's just not going to, it will be the time burn and it may not work. And we need that time for the actual display. So I think after we'd sort of already thrown that idea away and not planned anything for it, and then suddenly we're actually having to do it, and not with bricks that we'd said, we need this, we need this, we need this, and they hadn't ordered. So I was making those red and white panels out of wing plates. There weren't enough, it would have been great if they were all 16 by 16 and 8 by 16 plates, but no, it was all those 3 by 12 wing plates all the way up, and then having to support that structure, and then having those sort of all hold that weight, and then with 2 of the legs missing because that was the opening, and that was the final straw that in the last 16 minutes, actually, Gabby put on the circus sign, and the whole thing was bowing, and it was grabbing on the inside. So I think of all the things that messed up and could have messed up, but we actually overcame, I reckon that was probably it. And yeah, that in Grandmasters, the piano, it was a top 2, could have won that one, but I didn't feel like we were going to, and definitely being the 7th in the row where the ball had to go in through each of our things and we were last, it had successfully gone through everybody else's. They were hanging on some of the other guys that saying, 9 out of 10 times it works. Really? Only 9 out of 10? And we're like, I think we're at about 6 out of 10 where it works. And I was ready to vomit, but thankfully it did work. So I think both of those have a place in my heart for being both the reasons I don't like them, but also love them.
Yeah. So besides trains, what inspires your Lego design? Do you draw from architecture, nature, or like TV?
It differs with every build.
Yeah.
I do like replicating things that I've seen that aren't in Lego, but sort of, I'm not really make a beautiful sculpted tree or animal. I think Gus scared me away from those because he was so damn good at them. But
so good.
So nuts. So nuts.
So good.
Like, I've done a rebuild of the piano that we did on the show, but timed myself and did it properly. I made it look like a Yamaha U1, and I used to sell them, so I was like, I knew all the proportions, and so it looks so much better than the one on the show. But then if I was to build another thing from the show, it'd be our replicate clock. But it's like, do I really need 2 black display things? Not really. But I think, more those sort of, there's a lot about that clock that was straightforward, but then, the curved top and the sort of odd proportions, and it wasn't perfect. It was an odd number. I love doing that kind of stuff. So, but I'll happily sit down and the kid will tell me, I want you to build me a dragon with pink wings and a butterfly on its nose. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You do what you got to do.
Exactly.
So you touched on it briefly, but how do you balance creativity with architectural integrity? Like, that's a. I always love it when form, function, and aesthetics all kind of coalesce, and you get this kind of wonderful thing, which it looks great, but it also, it's practical and useful.
Yeah, look, I love anything that ticks and moves and does a thing.
Yep. Steam trains,
opens and closes.
Yeah,
animates minifigs, whatever. Loves anything to do with that. I don't know. I think like. When you first asked, I was thinking like when you have to make those compromises, when you pick the scale and say that's what we're working with, so this equals 1 meter or whatever, and then obviously there's going to be limitations based on the parts, based on how big a pixel is, how big a dot is, and obviously there's nice ways to snot things together and everything, but you're still going to come down to, if I'm making that window this size, the detail that's in the real one has to be reduced heavily, and you have to make those compromises and I think so long as you can sort of squint and go, oh yeah, that's no, yeah, I can see that.
Squint test, I like it.
Yeah, that looks like the Sydney Harbour Bridge. That's a good totally.
One. So, going back to your experiences on the show, what was probably the most memorable moment for you?
They're all memorable. They're all beautiful moments.
I know it's too much. It's hard, but like surely there's. I mean, for me, there was a moment where I think it was one of the eliminations, and I walked off set, and having watched the Australian Lego Masters, I think I'd always kind of given Brickman stick for crying all the time. And then after the first elimination on show, I was getting back and I was just like, man, I'm never giving them crap about that ever again. It was like, but I think whenever there was an elimination, it was bittersweet. It was you because you're losing a personality from the room, and the personality leaving from that room can so change the mood. It's just, and the whole show just pitches in a different direction. And so I think for me, those moments were always there was a surprising amount of emotionality that came along with it, eh?
It is wild, isn't it? Because you look at other game shows and that sort of thing, even when they're sort of friendly, shake your hands, whatever, it is still a competition. You still want to win, and everybody that, falls off gets eliminated along the way, you're one step closer to taking it all out. But I think it's because of the length of the builds. And I even found, like, in the brick pit, it wasn't one of those things of, I know they're building in blue, so I'm going to take it all. When people actually said, where are the gears and the longer axles? And third drawer along underneath, pick up the tray, and they're all under there. Thanks so much. You don't ever want it to be, I won because I trashed your build. It's I want it to be on the merit of what we both came up with in that amount of time. So yeah, when you do make it through an elimination, when you're like, the bottom two or whatever, and you're like, like, it's so relieving. But you're right, it's so bittersweet when
and then
some beautiful people,
like, someone will lose their build and you'll hear it crash from across the room, and all the camera guys will go scuttering, and you just feel your heart sink, and all the oxygen just gets sucked out the room, and you're just like, oh, who was that? Oh my god, are they okay? Because you're not thinking about the competition. You're thinking, oh my god, that would devastate me. I can't.
And even when someone kicks a bucket, you have that same emotion, and you're like, what broke? Okay, he just tripped over his bucket. Thank God for that. But you're affected. You're like fluttering.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, when our elimination was actually as a result of Sarah and Fleur's post. They had their little signpost.
Yes,
that
we talked about that in the previous episode.
And then they had to play their platinum brick, and even as the people that were going to end up copping it, and at that point we had no idea that there was going to be a comeback episode or anything like that. We thought our time is done. Gabby and I were quite resigned to it.
Production like to keep you in the dark, don't they?
Sorry?
Production like to keep you in the dark, don't they?
And then some. It's they like, I get it. Like, they, like, I got a bit of grief from, like, I think, I don't know. I think D-Mac and I had similarities, but our differences made a massive chasm between. And whatever I said drove him bonkers. Like, I'd say something like, can we do Guess Who's Back Again? And he was like, making TV again, are we, Ryan? Why don't you just concentrate on the bricks? I'm like, okay. I just, like, totally, like, ripping into me every chance he got. He just didn't seem to like me. And then the next thing, he'd have a really friendly conversation. Like, you could take this out, you could get all the way to the finale. Okay, so we're having a nice day. Okay, good. But I can't remember where I was going with that. But yeah, it was emotionally the way they like to drag you out. And I thought we probably didn't need to be that stressed. They probably could have got a good show out of us without that level of stress. But yeah, it's what they like to do. They like to poke the bear and just leave us really wound up.
They sure do. How did you handle the pressure or the time constraints of the show? You said earlier that you were able to break it down into sizable chunks and kind of figure out your pace.
Yeah, like Gabby was fantastic at really, like, we'd build, we'd have an idea, we had no idea how long it would take, and obviously the further you go, the more accurate, I guess, you get at, is this,
where it starts to look like what you want it to.
Yeah, and like when we did the comeback build, we had winter, and we did the snow train, the Orient Express getting smashed up by the rolling boulders that were as a result of explosions from the crimps. But to do that, we needed staging. We needed it to be just as tall as the plate was wide. And we'd obviously built up our speed, but it all came down to the grunt work of, can we build this bricked frame quickly enough to do it? And what we'd often do, like, other than the builds that were within the day, and even if we did have a day one, Gabby and I would sit down at lunchtime and then sort of draw up a bit about what do we want to achieve, what's essential, how long do we need for that? Okay, you can have 1 hour for finishing off your mechanism, 1 hour for skinning, 1 hour for minifigs, and then 1 hour for dressing, and that's it. But if we happen to get a little bit of this, what are the extras that we would love to add to it? Oh, yeah, second thing of a jiggy or whatever. More often than not, the little things that we'd love to add never made it. And it was often like, okay, we're never going to get that extra bit, so let's not worry about that part of the story. Let's just focus on that. But yeah, just really lining up the time of how much did we achieve in this first half? What else do we want to do? Can we do it? Let's set up a timeline based on what we've been able to achieve so far.
That sounds pretty organised. I think Dan and I's approach, commented on by many of the crew, and it was kind of, we start off plodding along, and then as it goes on, we just get faster and faster and faster, and then by the end, we're just like powering through. People are like, "How are you doing that?" Just this extra will. I think that the last minute is the most productive minute half the time.
I mean, it is amazing what you can actually achieve in that last hour relative to the first 3.
Yes. Yeah,
it is wild. Like once, I mean, I think a lot of the time when you, particularly if the idea is not, you're not sold on it, and you're not, you think, and then you look around the room and you go, oh, that idea is so much better. I wish we'd interpreted it like that, but we need to keep going. There's no choice.
Yeah.
But it's like, then you're finally like, oh, it's coming together. So now you know what has to get done. And then you go, geez, what do I do for 3 hours? What do I do for another 3 hours to get this done properly? But I'll tell you what, though, one thing that did speed us up, particularly for Grandmaster, we were put beside Scotty and Owen the whole time. And those, like, Owen is just a machine. He, like, unreasonably so. He is just so fast. and he out of the gate. Like, it doesn't matter, even if their idea was garbage, they would commit to it and they would just, and then they get told, no, it's no good, smash it down. So they'd smash it and then they'd do the same thing. I still don't understand it.
Yeah. So, were there any behind-the-scenes moments or interactions with the other contestants, like I say, that stick in your mind?
So many, but like it's funny to like it's too hard to highlight just one or two. But like it was interesting how you bonded with different people at different times, and like Michael was a pain in the bum, but I loved him. Scotty was just like the brother. I actually once described him as, said, "You like my brother, but you've actually got your stuff together." And he goes, "Mate, your brother must be pretty messed up because I don't have my stuff together, that's for sure." Owen was equal parts. I wanted to punch. It was funny because I'm in my field. I am fairly confident and capable and well respected and whatever. And I never really considered where I sat on the spectrum. And it was interesting that for whatever reason, I became Owen's punching bag because I was very easy to get on the 2-pound line. He could just always get my goat. And I'd never been in that position before where I'd been, I don't know, just had someone be able to dominate me so much with humor and, really playing on my emotions. But out of that, ended up with a beautiful friendship, but didn't start necessarily in a positive place. But yeah, probably, actually, you know what? One of my favorite moments, and it didn't go to air, and I was incredibly embarrassed. We built out of the side of a cash register this lady, Kitty Cash, with a beautiful car and a beautiful green dress made of money. And one of the things that we had to do, because she was a lady, she had to have boobs. And they kept on pushing us because they could see that I was getting flustered. And I said, no, I'm not saying the words. I'm not going to say anything to do with her form because I know what tomorrow looks like. When I go back to school, my class are going to and I'm not saying it because I know that's the grab you're going to give for TV, so I'm not doing it. And then because Gabby throws me under the bus, but during the storytelling, how they spend like an hour at your table and only about 3.5 seconds of it ever makes it to TV. And I tell you what, Hamish was R-rated. He was rotten, and and I know why. I was just flushing, and I just looked so embarrassed. And I'm sure that they didn't use his bits, but used a couple of my reactions. And it was so wrong. And everybody in the whole room was wetting themselves laughing. But it was, cheers, Hamish. Thanks for pushing.
So it'd be fair to say that Lego's had a fairly big impact on your life then.
Huge. Redefined my working life and everything. So
how does it redefine your working life?
Well, as it's quite funny, I've always loved using Lego at school and things like that, and got into, as I mentioned before, getting tricked into doing first Lego League sort of thing. But I always wanted to get involved in Lego education, and I applied for a little competition, and Modern Teaching Aids, a distributor for the Lego Ed products, liked my submission, but they also liked this other guy, Alan's submission, and they couldn't decide who would win. They gave it to us both, and so bothered to meet Alan, and we got along like a house on fire. And he said, "Mate, you are wasted in one school. You need to be taking this out of and he was already consulting in schools in other fields, and he was saying, you've got to do it. And I was like, oh, mate, I'm risk averse. I know I'm not onto TV, but I'm risk averse. And then the invitation to get onto Grandmasters came, and I went, I would be, all the ducks were in a row. And so I said, sure, let's do it. Let's come up with a name, whatever. And so on the back of being on TV again, Alan went and basically talked to all of his schools that he was aligned with and said, would you like to have a Lego Master? He's on TV at the moment. And they're all going, yes, please. And so it was instant business. And now, 2 days a week, I'm out at primary schools and high schools and even a bit of Swinburne Uni, doing Lego robotics and Lego STEM build challenges. And it's the best way to describe it is my favorite STEM lesson on repeat. And I'm totally fine with that Groundhog Day. It's pretty cool. And just kids are inspired, and it's just amazing to be part of that. Like, I know I'm not going to suddenly be the reason that kid becomes an engineer, but maybe I will play a small part in helping them discover that it's not all just, sketchbooks and computer-aided drafting.
Well, I've been doing something very similar here in New Zealand with my workshops, except I've been doing STEAM-based learning because the A stands for art.
Yeah.
And I think that, my thing is art. I think Lego Masters taught me that Lego is an art form, and I really need to take it seriously, in that way. And I think it is also, it is therapy. Like, there's something, I read a wonderful quote, I don't know how true it is, but the opposite of depression is expression. And I know for sure that the ability to express myself in bricks is something that I've always had when I haven't always had the words.
I like it. I like it. And I fully agree. The heading down the mental health path, that was probably my my rediscovery of Lego as an adult. Was a very, very tough time. It was the relationship was already over, but separation from my children and things becoming really, really tricky with court stuff and manipulation of kids, being told to call me and demand more money and all that sort of stuff. And my solace, my way of, and quite by accident, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to buy a Lego set because that'll give me something to do. My son he got into Lego trains, and then I'd discovered that, oh my God, trains have really improved. That was when
trains have gotten heaps better since the day.
So much better. And that was when the Emerald Knight was still available, and people were buying them, like 7 of them or 8 of them, and selling off the engine. And so I could pick up the engines for $50 on eBay. And so I was buying these, and then that got me started. Then
because they were just having extra carriages.
They all wanted carriages, and I was like, I'm happy with a billion engines that I'll rebuild in a tank, and I'm building into this, building into that. I had a lot of dark green trains for a little while there. But it slowly became, I was collecting with him, and then kind of for him, and then because I couldn't be with him and his sister, and then started researching what people were doing on Flickr and all that sort of stuff, and then found the Melbourne Lego Train Club. And I honestly think that without I'm not a shoe down the sliding doors sort of stuff, but it was pretty miserable time, and it was a pretty tricky. And I wouldn't say go as far as saying Lego saved me, but I reckon it definitely saved my sanity.
Well, I think
the
thing that I was talking to a couple of mates about this. It's one of the few, I'm trying to think of other ones, but there are very few artistic mediums which are, it's kind of like sandcastles, really. It's a temporary thing that's there for the enjoyment of it, and the process is actually often more rewarding than the product, because the product is just like it'll get washed away by the ocean again, And I think the beauty, like one of the guys, because of course we built the steam train that got destroyed in the bungee on episode 4, and I remember the producer coming down and going, "Aren't you kind of upset that it's going to be destroyed?" I'm like, "Nah, but we're getting the footage, and that's the art. Like the art itself is the capturing of the thing. The thing itself is the thing that created the art, right? It's not the reason for it." And I think there's one of my favorite New Zealand builders. I've never been in person, but David Hensel. I saw one of his builds at a Lego show, and it was this beautiful church, and it had a dilapidated roof that was done with cargo netting and stuff, and it looked fantastic from the outside. But then I had to sneak around the back, and it's like orange bricks and green bricks and purple bricks and pink bricks, and I'm like, I couldn't do that. Like, I have to build things symmetrically because my brain likes symmetry, right? But I realized that he was building for the camera.
Yes.
And so you're sitting there. Why would you build a full size thing if you only had to build two faces of it? Because it's only ever going to be taken from that angle, And it's just like that would save a lot of effort, and that really changed the way I think about it.
That was a lesson that I learned the hard way at bloody on the show.
Yeah,
and that was advice I got from a cameraman. He said, think about the hero shot. I know there's an episode that we did call the hero shot, but no, think about where the camera's going to go. We want one story. We're not going to look at every single side of it. It's just, and I was like, I just thought it was nice to have lots of little stories because I always, with like the train layout, the best thing is you want people to come to the layout and stay at the layout, walk right around it, notice the funny, the kid pissing in the tree, the yellow in the pool.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to say, oh, look at that. That's when Gordon got, bricked up in the thing, whatever. And, oh, that's really funny. He spilled coffee. You want them to notice all the funny little stories. But for the show,
it's on
one main story, maybe
like
one little side thing. That's it. And get that angle. So I think like the rainbow paint truck going into the thing and the geyser of paint coming out the top, and that win to me is probably one where I think artistically we really nailed it. A lot of it we probably overbuilt and built too much for the model. Whereas other people, like you said, with Hansel, he just by leaving the back of it like that, it's not going to be seen. Doesn't matter.
Okay, so you obviously we've talked about how Lego play fosters creativity and problem solving. How with the community go back to how I guess you said earlier that it was like creating your favorite STEM lesson over and over again. What are some of the highlights of watching these kids solve the problems with Lego? What are some of the little moments you take away and go, that's special, I like that, I enjoyed that?
I mean, it's funny because you have your sort of activities, the 20 top activities, and there's 10 that are like your mainstay, and you just know they're going to work every time. But there's several moments that because I mean I'm building the same thing over and over again as my little seed thing and my little demonstration one. And it's funny how you mentioned STEAM. There's a confusion here in Australia. Like I just took part in STEAMposium, but yet I'm a STEM teacher, and the A is drop it in as often as you want. But I would actually argue that what I do is definitely not STEAM. The artistic, we don't care about what color the things are. We don't care if it goes for a technical.
Yeah, but the artistry of engineering is not.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it just doesn't look very pretty.
They're like, this is the thing. Don't underestimate engineers. They're artists in their own right.
They are. Totally. But I think one of my favorite moments is building the tallest tower thing. I'd set a standard. Say go for 1 meter, but of course you're all reading the red writing. Can you make it taller than me? And in the meantime, once the kids are started, once I've got them going, I'll build a tower that'll touch the roof just to be annoying. But there's one group. Honestly, I don't have a lot of minifigures in my stuff because they get nicked, they get squashed, they get whatever. But they found every single Lego feet, torso, head, and they made a meter tower. Some other teams got the 2 meters or whatever, but they actually clocked the meter entirely out of minifigure parts. And I was just like, I salute you. That is phenomenal. Like the dedication to that. But we also do a hanging brick, but obviously rather than having separate strings, we do a rope across the middle of the room, and you have to make something that's perfectly balanced, makes sense flying. And there's this one, the teacher actually said to me, that team there, they can be a bit quiet. They don't really like, sort of problem solving. They like do this. So I hope that they like it. I hope they do it. And this girl comes up and says, "Oh, does this look like a cloud?" And there's white bricks all mashed up. And and I thought, what a great idea. Just hang a cloud. That's great. That makes sense in the sky. Yeah. But they actually made 2 clouds. And the third and fourth girl were building a rainbow. And they made it perfectly balanced. All these other people are hanging, finding ways to clip and wire and wrap ropes around and all that sort of thing to try and attach to it. And all they did was make a perfectly balanced rainbow with two almost identical clouds. And I was like, again, I salute you. That is brilliant.
Brilliant.
And it was genuinely beautiful. It was really upsetting though, because when you put the things on the wire, they sort of go up and down. And that was one that actually did let go when somebody else's thing released. The bounce was enough because I desperately wanted photos for that.
Fantastic. So, do you get any wannabe Lego masters coming up to you, and what kind of advice do you give them?
Don't do it. Yeah. No.
Save your sanity.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a funny thing because, like, when you're just floating around going to Bunnings or whatever, definitely the days are being spotted and are pretty low. Today, I was actually wearing a t-shirt that was the Duck Song. I don't know if you know the Duck Song. Yeah, Mountain Lemonade Stand. And I had 5 different people come up to me and say, "Great t-shirt, mate. Love the t-shirt." Different age groups and everything. I thought, this is reminiscent of when people actually said, "Hey, are you that guy?"
Yeah, yeah.
But with the going around doing Briculum, it's an interesting scenario because the kids have been introduced saying you're going to be doing a Lego thing next Wednesday or whatever. So that build of anticipation, they might watch a little snippet on YouTube or whatever of it as a reminder. It yeah, that brings out all those awesome, beautiful Lego characters that want to come up and have a bit of a chat. Weird signing autographs. It's like, wow, this is,
yeah.
It's a little bit cringy. And they're like, "You're famous." Like, well, I guess more famous than your PE teacher, but not famous.
Well, I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot because it's coming up on 3 years since we were on the show. We were 3 years ago recording at the moment, I think.
What?
But like, you think about it, you're in their homes. Like they sit down, they're having a meal. It's around dinner time. You're like a member of they're a piece of their furniture. Like I remember, I was stopped in the middle of New Zealand, just at a petrol station, and this guy pulls up next to me. "G'day, mate. How are you?" I'm like, "I'm good, mate." He goes, "You've been on telly or something?" I feel like I really know you, and I'm just like, "That's great. I mean, fantastic. Here we go. This random person who thinks I'm a mate already, just talking to me like this wonderful, It's like, oh, everybody should have that. It's amazing, just that familiarity with people. It's really cool.
It is true, and I had someone spot me in Aldi, and how the Aldi sort of lines are like, you got to go up one end and then come back the other way.
Yeah.
And she's gone up and said, "Hi, how you going?" All that sort of stuff. And then by the time she'd gone up, her brain's like, "Where do I know him from? No, not from work." By the time I'm so sorry. I know you. You don't know me. I just realised it's because you're on TV.
It's nice that she made that click.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I was at Brickvention in January, and there's this guy there that I'm just like I just kept on walking past. I was too busy, and he'd sort of eyeballed me, eyeballed him. And I'm just thinking he's just one of the many Melbourne Lego user group members that I really do need to say hello to, and I haven't yet, and I felt bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, finally at food truck on the third day, and I've gone, "How's it going?" Da da da. Yeah. "Oh, it'd be great to be back in." He said, "This is my first Brickvention." I'm like, "What?" "But I've seen you before, like a lot." And he goes, "Well, we were on TV, same," but he goes, "We're on My Kitchen Rules." And so he's, "Oh my God, I've just done it to somebody else. Yay." So Jason and Eve Sellers from, and they were on like 2010 or something like that. I'm like, wow. Forever ago. And Eve said, yeah, it's his mutton chops. He's got these big, very fairy sides. He's very a tall guy. But lovely people, very welcome in our Lego community. Happy to take on any TV people.
So what are your future projects besides the STEM stuff that you're doing? What other things are you building? What shows are you looking forward to?
Look, I try to get around to shows. I went to Brixpo, and I'll try and get to it this year again. I would love to get at the Sydney show, but yeah, usually the problem is that the cost of it and the work.
Mate, I'm looking at going to Sydney. I'm in the chat group at the moment. Look, it's looking pretty interesting.
I wish there was more money that could just somehow come from some sort of philanthropist that says, "Yeah, we want to get all the Lego masters together," because unfortunately,
all Lego nerds together to do some
famous
cool Lego
as we
stuff.
are. Yeah, I don't think many of
us.
Well,
there's some famous Lego nerds out there with millions of dollars. Let's hit up David Beckham, see if he wants to help.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I wonder if Taylor Swift likes Lego.
Look, Ed's pretty big in it. So Ed Sheeran, I reckon
Ed Sheeran, he'd like to build a Lego house. I mean,
I'm sure when we explained that the show's been in 30 different countries, there's about 60, 70 Australians, and I think it gets a bit cost prohibitive to get us all together.
Yeah,
but I'd like to just.
Well, maybe we just go to Richard Branson and say, "Hey, can you lend us a plane?"
Why not?
I'm sure he's got
get Channel 9 to pay a little bit. We'll get the LM logo on the tail fin.
Yeah, for sure. And then we can call Billand and see if they want to party.
It sounds ideal. I think we're about the only people that are enthusiastic about it.
I don't know. I think we could drum up some enthusiasm with the Lego Masters. Whether it's realistic or not is another story.
That is hilarious.
Someone mentioned karaoke in the chat group about going to Sydney, and I like that idea.
I just had to turn that
on.
The
Lego Masters karaoke night.
I just had to turn off my notifications. I thought this conversation is not going to stop while we're recording. I'll turn that off for an hour because that's going to be ba-ding, ba-ding, ba-ding as they're all back and forth.
I've got silent. Everything's silent.
How on earth did because often in my little spiel that I do at schools, I do a little one where I at nights if I'm doing like a family event and I bring up all the slides of remember who I am sort of things, but then I put up a slide of everybody that was at the finale recording of Grandmasters, and it was people from across the seasons, and just it was an amazing group of people. But when you look at it, you go, "What a weird bunch of folk!" Like we would not actually have met, likely,
No,
in any other scenario. We would probably, even if we did meet, it would have been like standing at a train station. We'd be lucky to have, oh, sorry, mate, you dropped this. That would have been the extent of the conversation that any of us would have had. And yet here we are, and so many of us we are friends. We may not be the best of friends, but we would absolutely, moments notice, we'd give them a hand, help them out, drop everything. And it's just crazy that this show, with all of its distance between production and the contestants, and yet we've formed a bond that even if we weren't on the same season, even if we weren't in the same country, we just go, I kind of know what you went through, so we can be friends.
I can relate. Like it's a shared experience, shared lived experience.
Yeah, but it just blows my mind the
shared trauma. I think.
Like we had Dirk but like somebody else.
I mean, I remember sitting there on the show one day and looking around the room, and like this is about halfway, and having gotten to know some of these people because we had barbecues in between and whatnot, catching up. Because we were in lockdown conditions, we weren't allowed to socialize with other people, but we were allowed to socialize with each other. And I'm just looking around the room going, okay, so that dude's an engineer full time and he builds tunnels, and then that person there, she's a musician, and that one there, she hand curates famous museum pieces, and and I'm just sitting there going around the room going, how am I in the same room with these people? This is amazing. It's some very, very talented humans, and they've all just like you say, they're all very different and there's some really wonderful, quirky people in amongst it. But they just got all this same shared, quirky, silly passion about putting little plastic bricks together. Who
would have thunk it? Who would have thought that'd be a reason? Who would have thought it would have worked as a TV show, for God's sakes? I mean, the credit to...
Well, I don't know. You've done it twice. Would you do it a third time?
Look, I think...
He's thinking about it. Look, he's thinking about it, ladies and gentlemen.
There's part of me that would love to. I don't think I would want to be away for 2 or 3 months again. I think I'd probably be happy to do a special or something like that. Definitely when I hear about, the workings of what's going on with future seasons and things like that, there is definitely an element of jealousy and interest.
Even sounds exciting.
Because after finishing filming season 3, all the casting agents were doing so you've previously applied for Lego Masters, would you like to apply for season 4? And I'm like, well, considering I was in the finale of season 3, I don't think I'm quite what you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's just because the casting agents have nothing to do with, actual, they just hide guns. But yeah, it was kind of like, I was even jealous. Like, I think I would like to go back and do it again, So, don't think my wife would let me, truth be told. I think she's done. 5 months of raising children without me is, and one of them 3 months whilst one was in utero. I reckon that's, she's done her time. I think it's time for her to be on the show, maybe.
Oh, well, could be arranged.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up to an hour already, so I think we might have to call it quits soon because, we've had a wonderful conversation. But just a couple of last questions. Okay, if you could build anything out of Lego, like you had the ultimate brick pit, what would you build?
Car. One you can drive.
Yeah. Full-size Lego car?
Not like Brickman's things where it's just all bricks. I reckon I'd want it to actually be a drivable hot rod or something like that.
I'd do a full-size Flintstones vehicle. I saw a little version of the Flintstones vehicle online today, and it's kind of in my head now. What's the funniest or most unexpected mishap you've ever had while building Lego?
Well, it's not the funniest when things go crashing to the floor, is it?
Is there, besides your steam train, is there another set you remember or a build that you did in childhood that you're particularly fond of?
I mean, I think the two biggies were the steam train and 7715 and 6990, the monorail set. I think, funnily enough, even as a kid, my big thing was modifying and mucking around and building my own stuff. And I guess as a very sad little thing, I actually completely tore apart my monorail motor and ran it off a separate powered system. But yeah, as a result, I'd forgotten all about it. I managed to go back to my parents' house and get the bits of it, and I had totally gutted it. And I'm very, very sad. I had a stage in my life where I was rigging up speakers all in my, around my bunk bed and all that sort of rubbish. And I ruined my 699. It's got a place in my heart for a totally different reason.
Oh, well, maybe the universe will provide you another one, I mean, it might cost you an arm and a leg this time, but...
Unless...
All right, hey, well, thank you very much for joining me.
You showed the free one that you got me, hand it over.
Mate, I know, right? Like, gold. Look at that, gold.
Reach into the...
Actually, my very first monorail, I got gifted by a friend of mine because they'd purchased it and it arrived and the motor didn't work. And it was a city one.
Oh my gosh.
And they were like, "Here, you have it. I don't need it." I'm like, "Seriously?" And they're like, "Go for it." I'm like, "Okay." We got another one arriving in 3 days. I'm like, "Sweet as." And so I ended up drilling the bottom of it out and pulling it open.
Oh, okay.
To find, I wanted, because it was dead already.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if I could do something with it. But now I just use it as an example because But since then I've managed to. They keep falling into my lap, mate. I don't know what to do about it.
What are they worth now? Like $130, $150 each?
I don't want to know. When I looked last time, they were like $25 US, and that was, a while ago.
I was going to say that over a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
And
ago.
I know the airport, that red piece that goes over the top for the airport one, the city. Yeah, that's worth a mint because that was the only set that ever came in.
That's worth a mint
because the white motors, they came in 3 different sets.
Yeah. They do. It was the cover that made it different, wasn't it? Yeah. All right. Hey, well, I'll have to get you back on another show at another stage in the future. But thank you very much for sharing your experience with me. It's good to catch up with you. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, just grab life by the bricks.
Love it.